absolutely, positively got to kill every mother.
Now stand aside, worthy adversary.
'Tis but a scratch.
Introducing Amazon Echo.
Alexa, read us a bedtime story.
Okay, Rolex is a Swiss luxury watchmaker founded by Hans Wilsdorf and Alfred Davis in London, England in 1905.
Alexa, ask Ghost what mission I should play next.
May I suggest trying to read a book?
Awesome.
Oh, you called in sick?
Yeah.
Alexa, what's my commute?
Your commute is about an hour. May I suggest you buy a digital watch with a countdown function?
Alexa, call the living room.
I'm sorry, Dave. I cannot do that. You forgot to say please.
No. Yes.
Alexa, start Sarah's dance routine.
Okay, but I must insist on some Wagner. That is exactly the expression. Perfectly sums up my experience with some of these watches. Okay, hi guys, and welcome to the show. Today I'm going to share my top 5 biggest regrets when it comes to buying watches. Now, I did do this video a few years ago, but of course I have since then made some other big mistakes, and hopefully in sharing it with you guys I can try to help you from making the same tremendous errors, and hopefully save you some money, because I certainly have squandered a lot of money but when it comes to watches, but it has been fun, and at the end of the day that's what it's all about. So, wristwatch check. I'm wearing my Omega 1945 World War II pilot's watch. This is very deliberate because it has got to do with one of the watches in question in today's video. Without further ado, let's get into it. A watch I've talked about a long time ago, and I actually purchased this before I had a YouTube channel. I didn't know as much as I do now. We are talking about the Breitling Skyracer Raven. This is a massive 44mm watch, 16mm in height, with the B27, which is basically an ETA 2892A2, but to a chronometer standard, as is typical with all automatics from Breitling. I adore this watch. I still do. I think it is one of the most underrated watches Breitling have ever made. The dial with that incredible sunburst texture, the uni-compact layout that gives it nice symmetry, but also the bezel, the bi-directional bezel has the little gears inside which rotate an inner rotating bezel at the same time, which give this, you got to see it in the flesh to believe it. It's a wonderful watch. Mixture of modern materials with the rubber on some of the inlaid rubber on some of the buttons, pushers I should say, sorry, and on the bezel, this countdown bezel. The subdials are unusual. It has a two-handed subdial and an extra hand on the main dial, so you can keep multiple timings with the chronograph. It's an ingenious watch. I loved it to bits, but of course, as the scale suggests, it was just too big for me. I bought the watch without trying it on, a cardinal sin. I fell in love with its design. It's not a typical kind of Breitling you see in the store very much. And I was at my home in England at the time. I bought it from the United States, so I got whacked with a huge import tax fee on top of paying for it. And then I had the most rotten luck. What happened was, it wasn't operating to cost standards, and I tried to take it in to Breitling to have it looked at. I showed them the warranty because it was from a grey market dealer in the United States. They didn't honor it. I had to pay cash, or rather, you know, I had to pay outright to have it regulated and put right. And it just goes to show, well, the rocky road, my rocky road relationship with grey market dealers had started. Did I learn from this experience? No, I since bought again and again from the grey market. God, it's such a shame because I adore this watch, and I catch myself even to this day looking at the prices on the used market, which is ridiculous. It doesn't fit me. So these are about what, $6,000, $5,000 to $6,000 new. Picked them up used for about half that because it's such a obscure model. It's not the one it's not like the Navitimer, for example, that's, you know, always lusted and desired. I lost a huge amount of money. I literally let's move on because I don't even want to admit to myself how much money I lost. It was, oh God. A used vintage Seamaster, Omega Seamaster from the 70s. I'm not quite sure the reference because this was a while ago and I had just started the channel. I adored this watch. It had everything I wanted. It had a bit of a kind of Gentry-esque feel with the integrated bracelet, the way that the case and the bracelet is polished, a little bit kind of royal oakish. What was wrong with it? Well, this unfortunately had the caliber 1020, which is the day-date complication. Beautiful 35mm watch. The date change was very, very flimsy, and this is because the correct tension on the cannon pinion is critical in these watches. Too loose and the hands do not move through the date change, and too tight and the teeth tend to shear off when you try to set the time. This is just unfortunately a trait of this caliber of movement. You know, I've since had numerous conversations with watchmakers all about this era of Omega. Since then, I've really come to appreciate, especially the 40s, 50s and 60s Omegas. The 30T2, which is in my little World War II Omega here, really was the bedrock, the foundations for decades and decades of very solid and very reliable, rugged, yeah, a little bit rudimentary, but it earned Omega's reputation for making fantastic, robust calibers. That kind of changed in the 70s. Now, don't get me wrong, if you have a 70s Omega with the 1010 or the day date with the 1020 and it's working fine, yeah, they can work fine. They are a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Temperamental. Then they're more solid calibers like the 200 series, the 300 series that are descended from the manual wines. Now this was automatic. The 1000 series was automatic. And we're joined by the good old NYPD as always. So what was the lesson here to be learned? Well, I didn't do my research. I would have probably not pulled the trigger. And when it came to repairing this watch, the amount of time had elapsed, the 30 days or whatever it was that the seller is responsible. So I had to fork out repairs. And unfortunately, I had to repair it twice. I had the same problem with the date change. It kept slipping and not changing correctly. I have since learnt my lesson, although I did buy another 70s Omega, which is typical of me. Thankfully, the second time I had much better luck. It's commonly agreed that this wasn't the best era for Omega. Be careful, make sure you do as much research as you can. Had I have asked, how was the movement performing, these kind of things, yeah, it could have been a whole different experience. Okay, number 3 is a Seiko, and this was quite recent. This is the SNZH57, and I had bought a modded version, the 55 fathoms mod off eBay. So this is basically a Seiko 5 automatic that had a change of dial and hands, and I think that was about it. Now, my mistake was I didn't research the seller, and I ended up buying a very badly or amateurish modification. To be honest, I could have done a better job myself. Now, I had paid extra for this modification. There was gunk on the hands, there was some misalignment with the bezel, this kind of thing, and I had to then hire a watchmaker that I know, shout out to Jeff, Watchmaker 4. I basically took the opportunity to have a whole bunch new modifications made. Had I have just bought a basic model, you know, because I paid, I think, $400 or thereabouts, had I have just bought the standard Seiko 5 for 100, I think they go for 120, 130, I would have saved a couple of hundred that I could have then put forth to having it modded by my trusted watchmaker who had done previous work, outstanding work on my SKX, the Black Panther. I don't know why I didn't do that. The biggest mistake here was not researching and looking at the feedback of this watchmaker. And not only that, I had not read the small print on the listing, which stated that I had to wait for him. He doesn't start the modification process until the purchase was made. So I had to wait weeks and weeks. On top of this, it was just infuriating. Really made me appreciate Watchmaker 4 to a higher degree. It really did. Always find a reputable watchmaker or one you've done or had business with before. Yeah, still kicking myself about that. Oh well. I had purchased a Rolex GMT-Master II. This is the ceramic, or the 116710. This was before I had a channel. I had lusted after this piece for months and months. I had to save up. This is a very expensive Rolex watch, okay? It's the decision, you know, I had tried it on. I had gone back and forth with the whole process. Finally, I pulled the trigger. It arrived, and I was in the United Kingdom at the time. I had worn it for a week or two, and then something very strange happened. And it's an inexplicable feeling. It didn't click. This is the best analogy I can come up with. It wasn't true love. It was like a crush that had somehow lasted the entirety of the time taken to save up for it. I had then the annoying and lengthy process, and which is made all the more worse because it's a luxury, high, you know, very expensive watch. How much are they now? I can't even remember. 8-9 grand. I forget. And I started lusting after the ceramic Submariner, which is what I ended up buying and, well, basically trading it in for. And this was before. Where is my sub? Here it is. This is before my 30th, which I bought my sub for. And I think the lesson here is that sometimes you have to buy the watch, you have to experience it. It is trial by error sometimes. You can take all the precautions and you just end up, yeah, not being the right one. Okay, so what's at number one? Well, it's probably the watch I'm the most bitter about. Now, if you remember, I owned an Amiga, first Amiga in space. I forget the reference. I'll put a picture. Caliber 1861, manual wind. It's a numbered edition, slightly smaller, 39mm size. Amazing watch, right? I had owned it for about a year. I've since sold it. My relationship with Speedmasters has been a long one. I've owned so many, you guys know. But anyway, what you guys do not know is that I had actually bought this watch twice. First time from a grey market seller. It arrived, it was faulty. I sent it back. I got hit with a restocking fee. So a restocking fee is a percentage of the price you pay. So when you're spending several thousand, it ends up costing several hundreds. I was enraged. This was absurd because the watch was faulty. Now, this grey market seller has adjusted their terms and conditions since that experience. They're clever. They're always evolving, trying to improve to make it more competitive and a choice rather than going with an AD. I then got back most of my money, and I then bought it from an AD, and it arrived. It was perfect. I wasted a lot of money with that experience, and it was probably my biggest regret, which is madness because I had already had such a problematic relationship with grey market dealers. It's that age-old thing of, well, it's a risk, but I'm willing to take it because you save money. I just had terrible luck. You guys could have much better luck than me. If I was to do it again, I would have probably gone with the used market, try and find a more competitive deal. I do think now, and guys, if you want some reputable sellers to buy used watches that you can get, in my opinion, just as competitive as buying grey market, have a look at my list of 7, that's not 7, that's 5, 7 sellers. It's a video, but I'll leave a link, so have a look back. Sometimes you can find, you know, mint, absolutely pristine watches that have been returned or used lightly, that is just as good as the grey market. So have a look back at that. Okay guys, I'm going to leave it there. Please do share your experiences in the comments below, especially your regrets. Let's try and help out as many people as we can. So if you're watching this, check out the comments. I'm sure the experiences of the good Gentry will also be beneficial and save you from making these mistakes, and hopefully some money as well. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, found it useful. And as always, guys, I will catch you in the next one. Okay, ciao.